All right, well, welcome everybody to the Pierce Dispatch podcast. I'm super excited. We've got our friends from the 9/11 Memorial Stair Climbs here with Oren and Ben.
Yeah, we really appreciate being able to be on with you today and talk all things stair climb and Pierce's involvement in the program as well.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I'll be honest, I think most people want to hear about the history of the climbs and all those exciting things. But Ben, what's going on with you, bud?
Not much. Everything's good here. Just echo what Oren said. Thanks for having us and looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, I don't know about you guys. One of the difficult things about stair climbs that when we're promoting the one here is that it's not like a 5K. So you almost have to, it's not like, hey, we're going to go do this. Here's what the benefits for. You almost have to explain it. So I'll put you on the spot, Oren. If someone came up and said, hey, there's a stair climb this weekend, what is that? How would you describe that to them?
Yeah, so like the first thing I would talk about is that it's not something like a 5K or a golf tournament. It's an event that is unique in and of itself. And while there's value in those types of events, what separates this one is that it really is able to tie in what happened on September 11th. Like there's a visceral connection to what firefighters and civilians were experiencing on September 11th in a way that we can relate to by climbing stairs. So obviously or maybe not obviously to some people, but the World Trade Center was 110 stories tall and 343 firefighters died on September 11th. Unfortunately, of course, more than 343 firefighters have now died since September 11th, but specific to the stair climb and trying to describe what the event is like, what we're doing is sort of emulating in a distant but similar fashion what the firefighters felt on September 11th as far as climbing stairs and being in a stairwell, or the effort that's created to actually take one step at a time. And I know for me, when I do climb stairs, it's a different sensation and different feeling than just doing like a 5K or a golf event. And it's an energy and output that each step affords me an opportunity to remember, and each trip up a flight of stairs or up a section of a stadium becomes another mark as to what we're doing and why we're doing it. And it's not easy to do, but it's an important tie-in. And I think that's actually part of what makes the stair climbs special and able to be as, I guess, resilient as the program has been. Now, as we get into our 20th year here in Denver, it still draws the same response from our community and from our firefighting community. It hasn't trailed off at all. And I think it's because of the effort that it takes to do the stairs.
Sure. Man, that's a tough one to follow, Ben. How do you describe the stair climb when someone asks you about it?
Yeah, a lot of the same things that Oren said. One thing I would add is it's draining physically and it's going to be draining mentally. So when you finish the stair climb, probably going to be an exhaustion, complete exhaustion mentally, physically. And during the stair climb, whether you're in a stadium or a stairwell, a lot of times all you can see is another stair in front of you or the person right in front of you that's doing the same exact thing. And you can hear the people behind you doing the exact same thing. And in the stairwell, everybody's moving at the same pace for the most part. So on a 5K or a walk, you can get to the side, people can pass you. You see people excelling, you see people not doing as well, but in the stair climb, everybody's kind of just grinding at the same pace. So you get that feel of I'm suffering or putting this output out there, and then everybody else is too. So it's just kind of a grind.
Yeah. How did this all start? Take me back. I mean, you just said it's the 20th Denver stair climb. How did that begin?
Yeah, so a group of us out here in Denver were getting together. This is almost pre-stair climb, if you will, but we were getting together monthly. It's just like a camaraderie / training thing, some firefighters in the area. And we were meeting the first Saturday of every month down at a high-rise in downtown Denver and climbing stairs in all of our gear. And that had been going on for a while. And in August of 20 years ago now, we were setting up the September date, like planning the next time we'd get together. And we said, hey, like the first Saturday is real close to the 11th. Why don't we just get together on September 11th and climb stairs. And then that day when we got together, instead of randomly climbing stairs, somebody suggested that we do the 110 flights in the building, which required, of course, multiple trips up and down and kind of carrying each other along during that Saturday. And afterward, there was 5 of us the first year that did it. And afterward, we were kind of all hanging out in the lobby talking about it and felt just a different emotion than we had felt on any of the other previous monthly gatherings that we had. And so we kind of carried that and loosely formatted an idea to do it again the following year, which we did. The next year, we got 12 people to do it. So we went from 5 to 12. And then kind of the word spread a little bit. And in that third year, we ended up with about 150 or so. And then starting the fourth year is when we sold out for the first time at 343 firefighters. And the reason that we limit to 343 is because we do it in a building. Somewhere we needed to draw a line on how many people we could let into the building. And that seemed to be a real good number. And that's also where the tie came in for the ID cards that everybody carries up the stairs, like one for each firefighter. We started making those, just cutting them out, a piece of paper, and doing that the day before the climb. And each year in Denver, we've sold out at 343 cents. A couple years after that, what I say our fourth year, I guess, that we did is the year that we sold out for the first time. And some of our friends that started the second stair climb, the reason they started out at Red Rocks was because they actually just missed getting into our climb. Like they didn't get in before it sold out. So they still felt really motivated and encouraged to do something. So they got together at Red Rocks and did it. That was the second stair climb. Theirs has been wildly successful ever since then. And then Nashville joined a couple years after that. And they became the first stair climb outside of Colorado that did it. And kind of our opportunity to figure out how to expand a program nationally.
Man, that's wild. So Ben, when were you on that first one then at Nashville?
No, I actually wasn't. Josh Smith, who started the one in Nashville, he was telling me, we were talking earlier today, but in 2009 is when he was actually at the firehouse on September 11th and saw a news story from Denver that was covering Oren and his climb. And he, physically fit into exercise, things like that. And then, of course, they remembered some 9/11. So he thought, hey, this would be a good thing. We don't have anything like this in our area that he knew of. So he reached out to Oren in 2009. Obviously, Oren was on board with that. And in 2010 was when the first Nashville Stair Climb happened. I actually was not in attendance of that one. I still didn't know anything about it. But my department actually put a team in it. And I believe they were the first team in the stairwell that day just by happenstance. But ever since then, I've been involved with it. So, and then a few years later, I was working as an advocate with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation and showed up to the event, talked to Josh, hey, how can I help? And then the rest is history. I've been helping him coordinate it since then.
So how did that get you mentioned the NFFF, and obviously you guys are both wearing your NFFF shirts right now proudly. How did you guys connect the stair climb and the NFFF kind of meet? Like, how did that relationship start?
So it was in early 2010. What we did was we connected with Chief Sarnicki at the time at the foundation, and wanted to use that as a vehicle to take the program nationally. Like, certainly the foundation has a mission and a purpose that transcends geography, location, or even profession to some degree. And they also have a connection with the FDNY that was important as it relates to the program itself. So we partnered up with them. We met in Denver, actually, with Chief Sarnicki, proposed the program. And then that year at FDIC, so it would have been April of 2010, I believe, Sean from Red Rocks, 2 of us from Denver, Scott and myself, and Josh from Nashville, locked ourselves in a room for 2 days at the convention center and wrote the initial incident action plan to create the program. And it was great because We had a building-based firefighter climb. We had a public event at an open concert venue, and then we had a brand new climb. And so we could kind of put all of our brains together and write something. And from then it just, has continued to grow and grow. And so I think to date we've raised in excess or about $13 million for the foundation. And each year the program, almost to our surprise, just gets bigger and better and more people involved.
Man, that's outstanding. So you mentioned a little there too then about the differences in the climb. So the Denver climb, you said 343. Does it have to be firefighters?
For ours, it does have
Or
to
is
be
it
firefighters.
340, first 343 to sign
No,
up?
just firefighters at our climb, which, I think having been to the climb in Green Bay, having been to Nashville, having been to a number of climbs, there's a lot of things that I love about the community being involved and the opportunity to involve police and airline pilots and military and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That brings a ton of really good things. I think what I also value about the firefighter climb is when you stand there and you're with 300, you see what 343 firefighters look like, which is just like a really emotional moment, but also you're
Yeah.
standing like with your family in that sense. And that is a different experience in and of itself.
Yeah. That's really neat. So that one's 343, exclusively firefighters. The other Colorado climb is open to the public. No max. Is that right? And then Nashville is also no maximum number.
No, Nashville mirrors the Denver
Okay.
climb. It's the cap 343 firefighters only. Families are involved where we do our opening ceremonies on the plaza of the building, and families are all out in the yard of the plaza. And then during the climb, we've got a couple TVs set up with a camera, one in each stairwell. We utilize 2 stairwells, so the family each round can, if they're paying attention, can visually see their firefighter coming up the stairs. But yeah, ours is a lot like Denver's. Josh kind of planned it out to match Denver.
Sure. That's crazy too. When you mentioned that all started, sitting in Indy in a convention conference room. Like I vividly remember when the idea came to like, hey, let's do this one at Lambeau and in Green Bay. And some was just us kind of jaw jacking after one of the climbs, and we're kind of teasing you guys about like, yeah, doing one here at Lucas Oil Stadium and how I'm sure we could get more if we, did this at a place like Lambeau. And then just to see that come to fruition, and you and that team coming up here and kind of teaching us how to do it, and thinking of how far that's come. But then that's only one of however many, climbs have really spawned out of that relationship that you guys have formed with the NFFF. It's just crazy.
Yeah. I would like to, I know you don't necessarily want to jump into a Pierce side of this, but I'm going to take the opportunity and do it. And I'm going to say,
Yeah, I thought you might.
I've had the opportunity to work with Pierce both through the stair climb and through an apparatus build experience, several of them now. And I've been real fortunate to be a customer of the company and traveled up there a few times. And I've got the chance to see what you do and how you do it there. And that's remarkable for what it is. But I also get the experience and the opportunity to work with some, like sort of your corporate side or your administrative side through this program. And one thing that we all really appreciate Pierce for, the culture that you guys have there is really incredible. But your support and willingness to be part of the foundation and to be a key driver in the stair climb program is really appreciated. And nobody has asked us to say any of this stuff. Like this all comes from our hearts to say thank you. To be able to do it in this venue means something to us, because I know you guys really don't like to say it for yourselves, but the support of the climbs for all the entire time we've done them at FDIC, the support by the climb up in Green Bay in your area, and then just the way that you spread the message nationally really means a lot to the program. And we sincerely appreciate you, and we sincerely appreciate Pierce's involvement with all that stuff.
All right. Well, you're right. I am uncomfortable with it, but I do appreciate you saying it. The part too, I think, with that is it's just been really special what it's meant to people here, like on a personal level. I think you've experienced that and even made comments coming up here. How I mean, you walk around, there's photos on the wall of people with the climb, and when you walk through, it transcended some things culturally here too, where you wear a badge on 9/11 here in honor of a fallen firefighter and encouraged to look them up, very similar to the way you do at the climb and those kinds of things. Like I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys for being such leaders in this. And there's so many areas that I'm imagining that impacts people across the industry. People like me, I'm not a firefighter, and how much it's impacted our family and things like that. And my boys getting to see it and learn about 9/11 and have such an impactful way to do that every year with the stair climb. Thanks a ton, guys. So that's how I'm gonna turn and flip it back on you. But talking to you that tell me more about how these climbs have evolved over time. I'm just imagining 5 dudes going and doing this climb, in full gear, and then seeing it evolve to these registrations and registering online and the significance of the 78th floor and all these kinds of things. But to me, could you like walk me through just what a day of it is? And frankly, just starting with an opening ceremony, because I think that's by far my favorite part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll chime in a little bit, and then I'll let Ben. You can stop listening to me for a minute and hear what Ben has to say. But you're talking about the evolution, and I chuckle at two things. Like one is when we started opening it up registration, we did it all by mail, like nothing electronic, no web registration. It was all by snail mail, and we were opening up hundreds of envelopes and trying to sort people's registration stuff. And even the fundraising part was an evolution. Like the only reason that we even had a registration fee to begin with was because we wanted people to have some kind of commitment to being there that day, not just, hey, I think I might do this and then not show up. And so then we ended up with like, well, what do we do with this money? And that led to other conversations and ultimately to what we've already talked about with the foundation. But I think the day of the event really kicks off with the opening ceremony that you're talking about. And that sets the tone for the entire day. And there's a lot of different ways that's done across the country. Most of the opening ceremonies include some version of a brief welcome, because what's important for us is not that you hear from us necessarily. Like the ceremony in and of itself isn't that important. It's what the ceremony says. And so it doesn't matter if they hear from Dan or Ben or Oren or anybody else. It's that we're portraying the importance of what we're doing that day and why we're there. And so that's done in a couple different ways. But one thing that we started a few years ago is we took the radio audio from 1010 Winds, which is a New York City news station, and condensed that down into about a 4.5-minute clip of all of the major events that occurred on the morning of September 11th, starting with the initial report of a plane crash to where the second tower collapses. And anybody that's heard that, at any stair climb you've gone to, it's an extremely emotional moment. And it gets everybody sort of in the right frame of mind for what they're about to go do. And then I know in Nashville, those guys do a lot like a more public side of the ceremony that involves some of the community. And, Ben can certainly talk to how they handle that.
Yeah. When you ask the question, how has it evolved throughout the years? I think back or think of when the 5, Oren and the other 4 started it. I'm not sure it evolved a whole lot of what that experience was for that group of 5 as it is for the 343 that show up to our climbs or the 3,000 plus that show up to other climbs. Because a lot of those are traveling in small groups or having that group feel to it to where they show up in remembrance to suffer together and all that. So the evolution of, I think it's grown a lot. It's expanded a lot, but the evolution of it, I think, has probably stayed pretty true to what those guys were in, what their intentions were that day and what they were feeling that day. But as far as the opening ceremonies in Nashville, we have pipes and drums. We have a chaplain, give the invocation. We have some opening remarks from me and Josh, and then we'll have a guest speaker each year. And that we've had anywhere from, survivors of 9/11, retired FDNY members, or family members of, someone who passed on 9/11, all the way up to Josh's daughter spoke last year about how she has grown up in the stair climb, which added a whole nother level to it. You were talking, Dan, about your kids being excited about it and being involved in it. And, Avery, when she spoke, she talked about, I believe that she was not born yet. She was going to be born that year of the first climb in Nashville. So she has literally grown up in the stair climbs, and she talked about the importance of her generation, which is hard to even think about, but her generation, who wasn't even alive during 9/11, or 9/11, keeping that message going, keeping the remembrance going, and stuff like that. So that layer during their opening ceremony was one we haven't had before, but it definitely was one that resonated with the crowd, especially due to families being in attendance and small children and children her age, listening to her talk about what 9/11 meant to her. So, but yeah, we've a lot of the opening ceremonies across the country, I mean, they'll go from 15 minutes to an hour. They get pretty elaborate. So whatever that venue fits, or whatever the climb atmosphere is, they're kind of all over the place.
Yeah,
But
and one thing that we started doing a couple of years ago was asking our climbers how many of them were alive on September 11th, or how many of them were in the fire service on September 11th. And one of the big evolutions, you guys have both alluded to it with your kids and Avery and stuff, but we see a huge swing of people that either weren't alive, weren't part of the fire service, weren't adults at the time. And so one of the really neat effects of this program is that it keeps it in a public conscience space, and introduces the events and the remembrance to new people in ways that they can connect with. And that's tying all the way back to what we started talking about with the importance of doing a physical climb. It creates those connections with new people in new ways that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get.
Yeah, we did. What's neat, and I don't know if it's other climbs do this too, but one of the things that the team does at the Green Bay climb is it has a chronological listing of the day's events as you go through. And so as you're climbing, this is what time this plane took off. And this is what, and the visceral experience that you described, Warren, I think nails it, because you kind of get in this headspace of what that must have been like. And in a place that you normally wouldn't be thinking like that. I never would have thought of that at Lambeau Field, and to go through and experience it. And then what they do is at the 78th floor where the bell is, after that, it then turns to all of the different things. Actually, it tells some of your story and goes through of when the stair climb started, funds being raised for the NFFF, things that the NFFF does, and goes through it. But I just think of that, like, it makes me, kind of a proud dad when the boys get to walk through and see that and understand what that is. And that's really, I can't believe Josh never told that story. I was probably messing with him too much when we're together about his daughter. But that's just such a neat and like proud thing too. We did that at the climb last year. I think Bob actually asked people to raise their hands if they weren't alive at 9/11, and it's just, we all experienced it. So we got to say, we all bought the bumper stickers and put them on our cars that said it would never forget. We'd never forget, and bought flags and did this and whatever else. And they never had to say that they'd never forget. And so for them to go take that extra step to actually learn about it and then make that commitment, that's the good stuff, man. All right. Let me lay this one out for me. And you may have already just said it, because that Avery speech is just going to stick with me for a long time. But what's your most memorable stair climb moment, Ben?
yeah, that's definitely going to be right up there with them. Probably another one would be my daughter. She's 7. She'll be 8 this year. But just looking out at her during the opening ceremonies and just starting to see a little bit of change in her during that, time where everybody kind of focuses and it's just in that remembrance phase. She doesn't fully understand by any means, but just seeing that little bit of change and her sitting with my wife, and the family aspect of it, whether it be just the family of the coordinators or the family of the participants, things like that. And one thing Josh brought up, because I showed him some of the questions that we were going to talk about, but he talked about during opening ceremonies how, for 15 minutes, you may not know the 343 people or their families or what they're about, but for that 15 minutes, everybody's focused on the same thing and everybody's in agreement, on the remembrance, on the tragedy of that day, and keeping that alive. So just, seeing that it's still possible for everybody to be on the same page, no matter your walk of life, no matter, all what your ideas are, anything like that. It's just kind of good to see, the good in the people at the same time. But yeah, that's opening ceremonies is a special thing. Getting in the stairwell is a special thing, but the opening ceremonies kind of just gets everybody focused.
How about you, Oren? Most memorable stair climb moment? That's a tough one to follow.
It is. And mine might be watching Avery's video. I'm not sure, but I'll tell you that the moment that I value every year, we do as coordinators, of course, none of us can climb during the public event or during the main event. So we climb each year before. So we gather at the building, 4:30, 5 in the morning and do a climb. And it's about the same 2 or 3 people that do it each year as a coordinating group. And it's when we finish the 110th floor, we walk out onto the roof of the building and overlook downtown Denver. And it's that moment each year that just for me, like I really cherish and value because it is the same feeling that all of our climbers get to have during the event, but I get to do it with some really close friends. And then it sort of kicks off the day for me. So it's not a single event over time. It's a one event each year that I really love.
Do you find yourself like reflecting on where it's gone during that? I mean, I'm just thinking of how quiet that has to be compared to what you're going to experience later on in that day, and just everything that stair climbs have become and are going to become. Like it doesn't show any signs that these are going to slow down.
Yeah, I do actually take a moment there and on the roof of our building, we can actually look west and see not exactly Red Rocks, but where the other event is starting. And so I'll shoot a text out to Sean. I'll shoot a text to Ben and Josh and just have sort of this moment where we all kind of take a pause and think about what's happening and what we've done. And anybody that organizes any event, whether it's a stair climb or a wedding, it doesn't matter. You have this event coordinator life cycle that like leads all the way up to like the event starting and you're going like, I don't know why I keep doing this. But then as soon as the event starts, you remember why and you cherish all of it. And so that's what that provides. And that is our moment to just sort of sit back and be like, this is really neat. Like it's not too often in life that you get to do things that kind of transcend us as individuals or become something larger. And it's really, really magical to be part of something like that for sure.
Well said.
Yeah. And, he kind of breezed past it, but he said that 3 or 4 of us every year, the coordinators group. And if you think about $13 million raised, the number of people or the lack of people that it takes to do that is pretty remarkable. I remember when I talked to Josh about helping with him, and I thought I would show up the day before to help him set up, and there would be just, close to 100 people just because I had seen the event several years and thought, man, this takes a lot of people to pull off. And man, each climb, it seems, because we have a coordinated weekend every winter in Emmitsburg, but all coordinators kind of have the same story. It's like, hey, it's just this small group that pulls off this unbelievable event each year, and they keep doing it year after year after year. And it's just crazy to see, when you think about that $13 million raised and the small dedicated groups of people.
Yeah. It really is. And I think of that at the FDIC climb when you see you guys like setting up for it. It's just a handful of you, and that's just incredible. So, what is like preparation? You talked about how you have to prepare for this event, like from a logistics standpoint, and the event planner standpoint. If you were trying to get someone to do this climb, how should they prepare for it?
First thing is reach out to us through the foundation's website. There's an avenue to do that. We have an event plan or an incident action plan that we can send that kind of outlines everything you need to do. Ideally, it's starting 8 or 9 months before the event, because oftentimes the hardest thing to do is to find a venue to do it and work that. But it can be done on much shorter time frames as well. But our goal is to bring is to make the program available to as many people and in many places as possible. It's not just firefighters. It's not just fire service organizations. It's not just, even in the United States, there are climbs that have happened in 8 or 9 other countries. And so there's ways that we can help that. We, of course, love to provide any experience that we've had and lessons that we've learned, but that event plan kind of marches you through everything that you need to do to get a first climb up and going. And then, like Ben said, we do gather each year in Maryland that's hosted by the foundation, and it's free to coordinators to come to. And it's a good couple of days that we get to spend learning from each other and talking through stuff. So there's a real easy way to get started. Obviously, then the work starts for the coordinator at that point. But our goal is to make it as easy as possible for anybody to be able to do it.
Perfect. So tell me on this one. If someone came up and said, "Hey, it's too difficult to climb 110 stories," what would you tell them, Ben?
I would just say, I would definitely tell them I understand their reluctance, but it's definitely doable. One thing we stress at all of our climbs is it's not a race. The purpose of the climb is for the remembrance, for the memorial of the 343. So we don't focus on speed or anything like that. But then I would follow up by telling them, it is a physically demanding endeavor. So, if you're planning on doing it, I would start now preparing for that, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. Definitely your legs. It's going to tax your legs, cardio wise. I would work on my cardio. But it's kind of amazing to see how people kind of just grind through it the day of, because everybody, when you get tired, you start drawing inspiration and energy from other people. Everybody in that stairwell, no matter your physical level that you are at, you're going to be tired also. So whether you're in very good shape or not good shape at all, everybody's tired. So everybody's kind of suffering together, back to what we were talking about earlier. So, if you do get to a point where you don't think you can keep going, unless it's a physical thing to where, medically you do need to kind of be pulled out, you get that strength from other people, and you'll start seeing people help that person. They'll take some of their gear, they'll remove their pack, they'll carry it for them, carrying a tool, things like that. So it goes back to the teamwork aspect, but I would definitely stress to them, preparation is needed if you're gonna do a stair climb.
All right, so you guys are at $13 million and growing for the NFFF. Can you talk a little bit about what that means? Like, what does $13 million mean to the NFFF? Like, what kind of programs are they doing with that?
Yeah. So one thing that was really important to us when we partnered with the foundation to take the program nationally was that any funds that were raised had some kind of tie back to the FDNY. Some of that's really direct. Some of that is a little bit more indirect. But the foundation meets annually with members of the FDNY to ensure that they have funding that they needed for certain programs. And an example of that is the counseling services unit for the FDNY is solely funded or almost completely funded by the Stair Climb program. And so that counseling services unit is a peer-to-peer network, as well as access to other more professionals that can help members of the FDNY and their families deal with almost anything that they need to deal with. They end up in firehouses, they end up at people's homes, they end up sort of helping each other in that sense. And so that's been a huge tie for us, and a huge part of what the money goes to. Some of the money also goes towards bringing FDNY family members into Memorial Weekend each year, as more names unfortunately get added to the list of members that have died since September 11th due to the illness and disease. More family gets brought to Emmitsburg for that annual ceremony, so some money is dedicated for that, and then some money is also dedicated for foundation programs that mirror what the counseling services unit is doing. So some mental health stuff, some peer-to-peer network stuff, and other related type events. And so it's the money that we raise through the program goes directly back into things that help the fire service and help the FDNY. And that's a really important connection for us to keep and maintain. And that even goes out, like, for an example, in 2012, there was a really unfortunate incident out here in Denver with the Aurora Theater shooting. And members of the FDNY Counseling Services Unit, their peer network, came out here and worked with members of the Aurora Fire Department who did super heroic and brave things that night, but had people to talk with. So something that started in Denver that funds an event or a group in New York City comes right back to our community and helps here. And so it was a really unfortunate way to experience the circle, but it's a really good way that it doesn't just stay in New York City, or it doesn't just stay with the foundation. It certainly starts and to some degree ends there, but it has the ability to touch anybody in the country through these programs that the foundation manages.
How about you, Ben? I mean, you mentioned that it sounds like you started by working with the NFFF, and that's kind of what led you to the stair climb. Can you talk a little bit about what the NFFF does and what those funds mean to them?
Yeah, I was actually part of the advocacy program through the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, and the foundation has 3 legs. So it's to honor is the first leg, to assist is the second leg, and then to prevent is the third leg. And that's where the advocacy program came into play, was the prevention side. We would travel the country delivering programs mainly to target eliminating line of duty deaths. When you talk about Memorial Weekend, that's the honor part. And in 1992, when Congress funded the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, that was a mandate. And then the assistance is the counseling services unit, family programs, things like that. And the foundation does a really good job of past Memorial Weekend, or even before that, they get the families to Memorial Weekend, free of charge, all of that. But then afterwards, they don't just say, good luck, hope everything goes well. They actually make a commitment to stay with that family as long as that family, will have the foundation. And that's with anything. I mean, that's helping scholarship wise. That's, like I said, family programs, widows. Sometimes you find out that the firefighter that had passed took care of a lot of things at the house that the other, the spouse took for granted. And then the family programs are there to start putting the pieces back together, understanding that you can never replace or replicate, the missed, but those skills that you take for granted start to be developed. And then scholarships for kids, scholarships for the spouse. Sometimes the spouse was a stay-at-home spouse, so scholarships to get them in some sort of job to where they can start providing for their family due to the loss. So the foundation is again, it's crazy that you got a group of 5 that started this, and then my work with the foundation, other than the advocacy being a volunteer program, the paid part of the foundation is such a small group that does such a big thing, and they're all just as genuine as could be. So, and one thing I've always said is the foundation is an organization trying to put themselves out of business. Not many organizations try to do that, but they truly are trying to put themselves out of business. understanding that that'll never happen because they vowed to never, leave any of the fallen's families. So the damage that's already done, they're going to continue to support those families. But, the goal is definitely to reduce that number of line of duty deaths each year. So.
Got it. Oh, man, you think of that, $13 million starts with 5 folks, in a stairwell in Denver, now spans all over the country. Where can people go to learn more about this, to sign up for a climb locally? Where would you guide them to, Oren?
Go to firehero.org, and then you can click, that's the foundation's website. And then there's a way that you can navigate to the Stair Climb program, and it's got a listing of how to get in touch with us if you were looking to start a stair climb, or you can find any stair climb link through their registration link right through there by date or by location. So if you're in Wisconsin and you wanted to find out where climbs were in Wisconsin, you can look it up that way. Or if you were looking to find a climb on September 11th, you can look it up that way as well.
Well, guys, I really can't tell you how much I appreciate you both coming on here and talking about these climbs, certainly promoting them. I know this is, in retrospect, the amount of work you do with the NFFF, getting an hour of your time isn't much compared to everything else you pour into it. But it just means a ton to me, both, as from a friendship standpoint, certainly the relationship with the NFFF. But I'm just going to keep looking up to you two, and we're super excited about our climb here, and just continuing to get to do this with you guys for a really long time.
Yeah, we really, really appreciate the opportunity to be with you. We really appreciate Pierce, and we really appreciate you. One of the things that has come out of this, in addition to all of the work that we've been able to do with the foundation and all that stuff, is some really great relationships. I would have never known you. I would have never known Ben or Josh or Scott or Sean in the ways that we do. And it's lifelong relationships, and I value all of it. So thank you for that.
I can honestly say, as you can tell by what we've talked about, relationships are key, and just genuineness, is a big part of this program. And I remember my first year helping with the FDIC climb. Oren said, after the climb, we're going to go have a kind of a post meeting with the Pierce guys. And I said, okay, and I figured it would be some kind of corporate, hey, this is numbers and all this stuff, but just, you being a real person, your group being real people, and just being to kind of decompress after such a, an emotional event, things like that. Just seeing how Pierce operates and just how relationships matter to Pierce. It's really nice to see, and I appreciate the relationships also and the friendships. So thank you, Dan.
Thanks. Yeah. And I can't tell you how much we look forward to that every year. Well, thanks a ton, guys. Appreciate you being on the dispatch. And stay safe. All right, guys?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.